Hello, Mike.
Hey, Jim. It's great to talk to you.
I always talk about you on this podcast. So, a quick reminder for the new listeners. I grew up in San Diego and I was best friends with these twins that lived down the street, and they had the best music. All their cassettes were just excellent, and albums were excellent. I got to tape all of it. The Cure, Susie, Teardrop Explodes, Echo, Squeeze, Lloyd Cole. And where did they get it? Well, from their cool older brother who was at college at the University of Georgia in Athens. What does he look like? I couldn't tell you. Never saw the guy. They had an old band photo of you singing. What was the band called? The Inmates?
Yes, the inmates.
Yes, yes. Was it punk or was it ska or what was?
It was sort of ska, new wave. We did some rockabilly, a little bit of everything, a little bit
That's
of punk.
That's beautiful. So anyway, but you were this guy who was in Athens, and I picture you like coming home for Christmas break, and you go, "Hey, kids," and they say, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah. Where's the stuff?" And they just go rummaging through your suitcase to get the latest stuff, latest
That's about
music.
right.
Is
That's
that
about
true?
right.
Anyway, so thank you for that, first of all, for bringing that music home. But I mean, we were just talking offline that you went to Georgia. Your college years were 83 to 87. So what was in the water in Athens?
Right.
Because that's
Right.
definitely a scene, dude. It's definitely a
Yeah,
scene.
it was definitely a scene, and I got there definitely on the front end of it, and it was interesting coming from a hip city like San Diego
Mm.
to Athens, Georgia, where the music scene was just kind of busting out. And, I'm not sure what was in the water, but it was brought originally, of course, by the B 52s in the late 70s. I think in 76 is sort of when they formed. And I think Planet Claire, whatever that album was called
Yeah.
with Planet Claire and Rock Lobster, I think that was 1980. So that sort of got things started. And then there was a band called Pylon, which was a big Athens band and kind of a regional sort of new wave. I kind of think of them like a Talking Heads kind of band.
Okay. Okay.
And then of course REM really right busted the place out. And so when I was there in 83, REM had started, I think, in about 80, 81, and Murmur was released in 83.
Oh,
So just after I guess before or just after I got to Athens. And, during the years that I was in Athens, they they released Murmur in 83, Reckoning in 84. What was next?
Life.
Fables.
Yeah, Fables, and then Life's Reflection.
Fables in
Yeah, Fables.
85, Life's
Yeah,
Patent. It was one
86.
every year while I
Hmm.
was there, starting with Murmur and actually Chronic Town before that, the EP,
Yeah.
then going through Life's Rich Pageant in 86 or
86.
whatever that was.
Yeah.
So it was those were big years. And REM really, I mean, the scene really followed REM. It was first REM. And then suddenly what happened while I was there, which was awesome, is that bands wanted to come to Athens, not only to play, some of them came to play and then they just stayed. They moved to
Wait,
Athens.
move there?
Yeah. So I'll give you a couple of examples. 10,000 Maniacs.
No way.
Yeah, they left Jamestown, New York, I think is where they're from. Some small, I'm not even sure where that is.
I had
But
no idea.
they moved, they actually lived in Atlanta, but they spent a lot of time in Athens. And so if you ever went to an REM show in Athens, and there were lots of them, they would play at 40 Watt Club and Uptown Lounge and Legion Field. Um, there was always a Natalie Merchant sighting. She would come
Oh,
up and sing with them. And similarly, I remember a particular show seeing 10,000 Maniacs at the 40 Watt Club. And um, and my best friend, who's also from San Diego and went to Georgia out there with me, his name's Dale. He was there. We were on sort of opposite ends of right up against the stage. And I looked over at Dale and Michael Stipe was standing right behind him. So it was very cool. So there was 10,000 Maniacs. There was, did you know Matthew Sweet moved to Athens,
moved to
Georgia?
Athens? No.
And didn't you do a podcast on the Matthew Sweet Girlfriend album?
Yes, yes. And who
So
plays on
he
that album? Lloyd Cole plays on that album.
does Lloyd Cole.
There's one track he plays
Is that
guitar
right?
on. I thought I
Well,
knew
so
you. Anyway, keep going.
so he so Matthew Sweet, I think, is from Ohio
Hmm.
and moved to Athens again in the early 80s while I was there.
Wow.
And he was in a band that was popular in Athens called Buzz of Delight. So you'll have to look up Buzz of Delight.
All right.
And it was him and a guy named David Pierce was the drummer. And David Pierce had been the drummer, I think, in a band called OOK with Linda Stipe, who played bass and is Michael Stipe's sister.
Wow.
So there was a lot of nepotism going on in Athens.
Beautiful nepotism. Yeah.
And I'll tell you another really good, some of your listeners may want to listen to a band called Dreams So Real. You ever heard of that?
I've heard, I think maybe you or one of your brothers talk about it.
Yeah, probably. They had one semi big college radio hit called Rough Night in Jericho.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, so they were all University of Georgia students. Their bass player was a friend of ours, was in our friend group.
Nice.
His name is Trent Allen. And then finally, the last one that I'll tell you was of all people, of all groups, the Butthole Surfers.
Moved to Athens.
Moved to Athens. They actually lived in a little town outside of Athens, I think called Winterville. But funny little story about them. So they played around in Athens, which was kind of a weird band to have in Athens, Georgia, right? Not really an Americana. I mean,
Right.
they were
jangly guitars and
a little more edgy. But when I was, I guess, freshman, sophomore year at Georgia, a lot of my friends, of course, were from Atlanta. My best friends, my girlfriend, all from Atlanta. And one of their friends in high school played bass guitar, and he was in high school, so he's a couple years behind us, maybe 3 years behind us. And during our junior year, and he would come and hang out in Athens with us and everything. And during our junior year, he became the long-standing bass player for the Butthole Surfers. So it was a crazy time.
I mean, obviously you should be on our REM episode, but you're on the Lloyd Cole episode. And I think it's because you've now retired your medical practice, you put it all on the shelf, and now you have time to go on podcasts, right?
Yes, absolutely. I'm looking for a second career.
That's right. That's amazing. Okay, so before we talk about Lloyd, you ever meet any guys in REM? I mean, don't you have a story like in a record store or something?
I do have a story of in 1984. There's this little record store called Wuxtry, WXTRY, Wuxtry Records on College Avenue, downtown Athens, Georgia, right across from the University of Georgia Arch, sort of the opening to the old campus. And it was this great little store, and I would go and get the imports. They got all the import records, and it was just this tiny little place, but it was just this great record store. And I went in one day and I found the Cure concert album, the black, I don't know if you remember, it was like a black cover with typed print, just said the Cure concert. I think it was just called. And of course it was in the plastic, it was an import. So it was in the plastic, the whole 9 yards. And so I grabbed and of course I knew who was at the cashier before I bought it, because it's a small store, but Peter Buck was the cashier.
Nice.
Yeah. And so I'm playing it cool. Everybody plays it cool around those guys in Athens. And so I just take the record up to purchase it. And he's like, "Oh yeah, this is a great album."
Yes.
Gives me my change. I don't know. It was probably $10 back then for an import.
Oh my God.
And Wuxtry Records was actually where he started working there, I think in 80. And that's where he met Michael Stipe.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, in that little record store.
So what year are you buying a Cure album from him?
That was, I think, 84, that album came
So
out.
Murmur's out. Like before Reckoning, but after.
No. Oh yeah. Oh, well, we knew who. I mean, everybody
he still needs a day job. I mean, this is amazing.
Well, it's funny. I don't think he needed it at that point, but it was great that he still had it, because they all had that kind of connection. Like I said, you would see them out at shows because everybody came through. Everybody wanted to play at the 40 Watt or the Uptown Lounge.
Yeah.
And they were out seeing those bands. So they were just out and about. They were,
I mean, that is a scene like like Seattle had a scene in the early
Yeah,
90s. Like it is, we
right.
don't talk about it enough. And yet you're on a Lloyd Cole podcast, so we got to. I'm wondering if you ever saw Lloyd in Athens. Did he come
I
through?
did.
Oh,
I
really?
did. So Lloyd Cole came through. uh, Rattlesnakes came out in 84,
Okay.
October of 84. And then, and they toured in April of 85. And, and I found this out later, but apparently Athens was like an add-on date. I think they had come to Georgia from Minneapolis or something, and they had like a 3-day period before they played in Atlanta. And they added on this show in Athens at the 40 Watt Club. And I don't remember if I bought the album. I think that in anticipation of uh, them coming, the radio station there, WUOG, which was the University of Georgia station. It was an alternative, college radio
Oh, it
station,
must have been great.
which is where I found all of this music back in the day.
Oh,
Was on WUOG and on and on a station called Album 88, which was the Atlanta. I think it was Georgia State.
okay.
Um, and of course, we could pick that up in Athens. So we had those two radio stations. But um, what was I getting at? Okay,
So Lloyd has an add-on date.
I'd heard them, and I bought the album Rattlesnakes, and I went to the show, and the show actually was not very memorable. I don't really even, I was kind of lukewarm to it. I certainly didn't, and I listened to the album, and it was like, okay. But at the time, which is kind of ironic, at the time, the Smiths' first album was on like a loop. I was listening to it over and over and over. And the irony of it is that when you go back and listen to Lloyd Cole, his lyrics are they're very similar. He has a very similar style.
Rich as hell. Yeah.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
really are. And so I think it was a year or so later where I really started getting into their music. And then Easy Pieces came out, and then Mainstream. I enjoyed all that. So I did see them in Athens, but honestly, that show was, again, not really memorable
I've
for
been
me.
watching I've been watching some live clips and prep for this pod, and I know what you mean. I
Yeah,
can
he
understand
just
what you're saying. It's not a
stands
fun.
there, comes and sings, and he's got beady eyes, and he just, it's just not really exciting. And there were a lot of, and that was at the same time that the Butthole Surfers were playing in Athens. If you've
um,
never seen a Butthole Surfers live performance, you should YouTube one of those from 1984. It was an event.
I'm writing that down. So your brother Adam is famously a completist. They go solo. They release something
Right.
in 2018, and he's heard it. How
Yep.
deep did you go with Lloyd?
Uh, he became my favorite. I mean, he was probably, The Cure, of course, was sort of my original favorite band. I would say through the 90s, Lloyd Cole as a solo artist was definitely kind of the soundtrack of my 90s,
Oh, that's
early
great.
to mid 90s life. I loved his solo work, and I've seen him. I mean, I saw him play in Atlanta supporting Don't Get Weird on Me, Babe, which I think was his second solo album
Correct. Yep.
after Lloyd Cole, the
Right.
one with the X on it.
Which is so
And
cool. What a cool
yeah,
cover that is.
and it's such a great album.
Such a good album.
It really is a good album. But so I saw him in Atlanta supporting that, and then I didn't, I didn't see him, and there wasn't. I don't know. I lost connection with him, um, not so much his music, but just what he was doing, because I think he was kind of out of the
Hmm.
rotation for a while, even though he was still making some music. But then when I moved to Annapolis back in 1994, he moved to Massachusetts. He lives in Massachusetts outside of Boston or something like that. And he comes down here regularly. So I've seen him probably three or four, five, maybe 3 or 4 times probably. I took my son to see him once when my son
Nice.
was 14 or 15. My son's a huge, as you know, Hunter is a huge music fan. And so I've seen him multiple times. I've met him several times.
Oh, really?
We've chatted about golf and music, and he's a big golfer. So we've
Yeah.
chatted excited about a few things there. And and I think I may have mentioned to you offline or in text that the most memorable show that I saw of his was actually September 12th, 2001. So it was the day after he had scheduled a show here at our local music venue called the Ram's Head. And I think it was the second or third time I had seen him. And then 9/11 happened, and everybody thought for sure that was going to get canceled. Everything was getting canceled, right?
Right.
And the show went on.
Wow.
And so he played, and it was really weird. I mean, it was kind of obviously a melancholy kind of evening.
Yeah.
But his music's kind of melancholy anyway, right? And so that was an interesting show. But yeah, I've seen him multiple times, and he's a great artist. He's really engaging in a small venue.
Mm-hmm.
He's very engaging. He's witty.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So is Rattlesnakes, going back to it, is Rattlesnakes your favorite album of his? And if not, what is?
I think, I mean, it's my favorite of the band, him with the band.
Okay.
I think Don't Get Weird on Me, Babe is probably my favorite overall.
Solo.
Yeah.
All right. So for Rattlesnakes, I've asked you for a least favorite and a top. You can do whatever order you want, but what do you got for us?
So as far as a least favorite goes, I mean, I think it's a pretty solid album, top to bottom. So it's tough for me to choose a least favorite. There's not one that I would skip when I listen to the album or anything like that. But if I had to pick a least favorite, I'd probably say Patience. Yeah, I don't know. It's just maybe because, I don't know, there are several songs on that album that have a similar kind of vibe. And so I don't know, maybe it's just too much of that vibe. If I had to leave one off, that would be the one I would leave off. Having said that, I know every word, and I enjoy the song. I still like the song.
It's the worst part of this podcast is we have to talk crap about things that we love.
Right. I mean, it's interesting, right? When you have an album where there's one outlier song that you're like, oh, they should have just gotten rid of that. But on this album, I don't really find that.
Exactly.
It didn't seem like anything was a filler. Nothing's a filler.
Right. And Patience is so late in the album that you're like, I've heard this song before. It's got to, I get the logic, man. It works. Exactly. It works. Exactly. So is there a favorite, or is it like 4 songs tied for first place? Or
so I would say my favorites, I really dig Down on Mission Street. I love that kind of haunting sound that it has. And it's great to listen to in the dark with headphones on. It's a haunting melody. I really enjoy that. Speedboat is just clever, very much, again, in sort of the Morrissey way, I think. So that would probably be number 3. I like 4 Flights Up.
Oh.
I like the
mover.
Yeah, I like to me, it has kind of a Zydeco Americana sound. It certainly is in that album. I think it pays tribute to his appreciation for American music. Mm-hmm. And whereas I don't think anything else on that album is similar. I think it stands out by itself. So I love it for that reason, and I like the upbeat to it, and it's just a great little pop song, I think. Mm-hmm. But like many would say, and I have to say that 4 Flights Up, it's got some great lyrics, right? Oh, must you tell me all your secrets when it's hard enough to love you knowing nothing? I mean, it's just great, right? Like, how do you come up with that? How do you come up with that? So, having said that, my favorite is probably lots of people's favorite, which is Are You Ready to Be Heartbroken?
Really?
Yeah.
Not a shocker.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I wouldn't put Rattlesnakes on my bottom, but Rattlesnakes is definitely not one of my top. The songs
Yeah, yeah.
is definitely not one of my top. I think on that, "Are You Ready to Be Heartbroken?" That track, uh, the intro is great. I love the guitar intro is great, and then I just love the little da 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 da
Yep, yep.
da da da. It's just great, right? You just can't go wrong with it. And it's an '80s album, right?
Mhm.
So he's got to throw in the '80s synthetic clap. The clap I mean, Blue Monday is full of it, right? On New Order, but he has the uh, uh, he says, "Are you ready to be? Are you ready to bleed? Clap, clap." It's in there.
It's a two
Subtle.
clap.
Yep. It's subtle, but he's got it, right? So
And
he's
we talked about the two clap on this pod before. I mean, it's
yeah,
it's a thing, and it's so well done in this song. It's
yeah.
amazing.
So I love that song and the album. It's an album that I can always listen to. I love to listen to it on shuffle just to mix it up.
Uh-huh. Hmm.
But I don't think it has a weakness. I think it's just a great album.
Thank you for being on this pod. Before we
Thank you
hang
for inviting me. I've listened to many of the podcasts. Of course, I do love the REM podcast. Um, Reckoning's my favorite album, by the way.
yeah, we'll have to do that. We're going to do every album, as Dan says. We're going to do every single album that exists. So we'll have
And
you
the
back.
the Violent Femmes episode is one of my favorites as well.
Yes, thank you, Mike.
Because
Okay.
my brothers are such big violent. They know every word, every sound. For guys who are totally non-musical,
Yeah.
they know every word, every sound.
Oh my God. Hey, do you have anything before we hang up? Do you want to say hi to your brothers? They're listening. This is a surprise for them. You want to say hi?
Uh, no.
Thank you, Mike. That was beautiful.
All right,
Perfect.
Jim.